So welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Mark Kovacs and here with my good mate, Jason Bohn. So Jason, it's great to see you again. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about health and how health and fitness has changed in sports over the last 2 decades. I mean, you've had a first-hand view of how the game of golf has obviously changed over the last couple decades, and I'm going to provide some perspective from some of the other sports as well. But we get this question a lot about how should people train today? How is it different than how people trained a decade or 2 decades ago? So I'd just like to, maybe if you could run through, just real briefly, sort of when you were growing up as a junior golfer, what you did and how different it is now to how the junior golfers train.
Oh, it's when I was growing up, it was completely non-existent. I mean, that like pre-Tiger Woods. Like Tiger Woods for golf changed golf training. He totally did it himself. I mean, I remember it was like...
Was there anyone before Tiger? So, because Tiger must have seen that from somewhere, or did he just pull it from other sports?
I think the most fit player that we had of all time was Gary Player. Mm-hmm. And so he was always... But he was a push-up, sit-up guy. He was all on his own. There was no equipment. There was no
he just liked
technology. He just liked being fit, and he could do more push-ups and sit-ups than anybody else. You know, I mean, that was his thing. So maybe Tiger generated a little bit of that, but I think that came more from... what we talked about in one of our previous episodes was kind of the obsessiveness. And he just saw, hey, if I could train my body, get it to do these things, I could make my club move faster, I could do all this stuff too. So, I mean, but growing up as a kid, it was the training was a hot dog and a Coke at the turn. I mean, it was really that. I mean, we just didn't have anything. We didn't have any nutrition. We didn't do any of that. And then as I kind of came in, played, even in college, we didn't have, like, we would run the stairs.
When for folks that may not know, you went to the University of Alabama, one of the best sports schools in the entire country. So
in the early 90s, that's right. So, I mean, that's right. I mean, it's nothing like what it is today. I mean, it's so completely, in 20 years, 30 years, it's dynamic, the change of what's happened. But, like our coach, we didn't even really have workouts. We didn't have scheduled workouts. I can't even comprehend that today. I mean, and if we did, we got in trouble. We'd have to go run, the stairs in the basketball coliseum.
So there was no mobility training, no core work, no glute activation. You hear all these buzzwords now that everyone throws out. No Pilates.
Yeah. None of it. Not a lick of it. I mean, it was smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, it was like we have this great phrase that we'd say in golf and college. We would be like, all right, you think you're going to shoot 68. You actually shoot 78, and then you drive the school bus home at 88. I mean, so that was kind of how it all, like, that was basically, and that was kind of the fitness part of it. I mean, we just didn't, it wasn't in existence in college. And so, and then as I kind of watched over the career, my professional career in golf, now it's so intense. I mean, it's so different, and there's so much information, and there's so... Like almost every single guy has a personal trainer. They have a personal physio. On the PGA Tour, we have these 2 18-wheelers that are at every single site. We have chiropractors, we have physios, and then we have a gym. And
that's provided by the tour. That's at every event.
Every single event is provided by the tour. Now, some of the events, we still have them. Some of the events, the golf courses will open up their gyms and allow us to use them, but... most of the time it's just those trailers. You're just using those trailers, and you're seeing the same trainers, the same physios, the same chiropractors every week too, which kind of helps for your body. You're not seeing somebody new every single week, and so that's completely different. That was, that never existed. That is all kind of post Tiger Woods.
And I think we've seen it in how much further everyone's hitting the ball as well, that there's definitely a relationship there. The more physical training, the better understanding of biomechanics and how the body's moving, trying to get those extra yards makes a huge difference to every player, as well as all the changes in technology that's impacted that as well. But from a general health standpoint, you think the golfers are healthier now or just fitter and separating them out?
I think overall both. Yeah. And I think that the athlete is completely different. Golf, and I'm interested to hear what you say about tennis, because in golf, like when I came out and was playing the PGA Tour, we had guys that were 5'6". We had fat guys. We had little skinny guys. We had tall guys. It was a really diverse group. I mean, we had guys that were, Ernie Els was 6'3", and when you would walk out in the range, you could find him. Like, he stuck out like he looked like a Neanderthal. I mean, he was just this massive guy in the range. You went, look how big that guy is. And now you can't even find him. If he's playing a tour event, he's non-existent. He just hides. And the athlete is, and I think golf, though, I think Tiger drove the actual true athlete to play. Now, some people say, well, golf's, not really a sport. There's not really athletes. Well, they are today. Today, these guys are athletes. These guys can dunk basketballs. They could have played college baseball. They could have played college basketball, and they chose to play golf. So that athlete, there's no, one of my good buddies, Tim Herron, there's no big kind of fat, pudgy guys out on the PGA Tour anymore. It just doesn't exist. I mean, these guys are, gifted athletes. They could have played any sport or chose golf.
So can you explain to me and some of the other folks listening how someone like Jordan Spieth or a Justin Thomas is competitive distance-wise with, say, a Bryson or a Brooks, because they're built so differently?
Yeah, completely. They're built completely differently, and they're the distance all comes from sequencing. It all comes from matching up your sequencing right and for your body, and applying your ground forces at the right times, and maximizing all, being extremely efficient. That's how a guy like Justin Thomas, who might be 150 pounds soaking wet with rocks in his pocket, that's how that guy can drive at 325 pounds, because he's super efficient with what he has. And then a guy like Bryson, he bulked up to try to create a lot of mass and do it through, the movement of mass is going to move. And he's by far the longest, though. He did it. I mean,
and he changed the swing as well. Completely. I mean, his front leg now completely comes off the ground, moves to the left, which historically was never taught.
That's right.
And the long drive guys used to do it, but outside of that, so it's really interesting how the fitness side has impacted the biomechanics. Because if you didn't have the fitness skill set to do that, you couldn't make those biomechanical changes. If people would have tried that without the strength, without the stability, without the mobility, they would have really hurt themselves.
And I think that's just all technology, right? They learned what it was. Then they created these great game plans of how to do it, they just didn't do this overnight. They got to learn how to stabilize different parts of your body, how to strengthen different parts of your body. And that all takes tons of time and lots of effort and energy to do it. And I think everybody has that information now, and everybody is applying it and that's why people are hitting it farther. People are just way more efficient at what they're doing.
So how about the folks that are sort of weekend warriors, whether it's golf or tennis or other sports, pickleball, and they're trying to sort of stay in shape for their sport, or so they can enjoy their sport longer. You're moving up in age a little bit. What are you doing differently now than maybe you did 15 years ago?
Yeah, well, when you mentioned pickleball, I'm really excited about it. We're going to have a whole show of pickleball, because I want to learn how to play it. I've never played it. I want to get into it.
It's the fastest growing sport in the U.S. right now.
I want to try it so bad. So we'll have a whole nother. But to go back to what I'm doing differently now is that I do a lot more core work, a lot of Pilates, a lot of stretching. And I think that if I could educate anyone out there, you don't need, we're not Bryson DeChambeau. You don't have time, take off work, not go to work and add, 60 pounds by doing, that's a realistic thing in professional golf. It's not a realistic thing at home. But I would just say the most important things you can possibly do are just kind of be limber, stay stretched. And in golf, your core is it's a massive part of it. And it's difficult to do when you first start doing it. If you haven't done a lot of core work, you're like, oh, but it's not like hardcore sit-ups. It's not a lot of that stuff. It's a lot of gentle movements that are kind of like, I don't know. I can't tell you. My body doesn't look any different, but it definitely feels different, if that makes sense. So that means to me, like, I'm also doing it right, because I'm kind of building my under layers, so like, I always say I have a firm belly now, but it's still a belly, you know what I mean? But so
I like the term underlayer. You want your underlayer to be strong.
Yeah, you do. You want your underlayer to be strong, and you can do that really from the comforts of your own home too. It doesn't take a lot to get it done. But in golf, I would definitely do my stretches and try to stay limber, and then do some core work, and then and then he'll enjoy it. Have a couple of cocktails while you're out there playing golf. I mean, enjoy the game.
Yeah. No, I mean the sport allows you to be out there for hours, be in nature, walk. Hopefully, if you enjoy walking, and again to challenge yourself mentally and physically sometimes. So it's really neat from that perspective. The tennis world has changed dramatically in some respects, and then others. Some of the old school type training is actually gone away a little bit, which for certain things, more old school training is needed sometimes. People have got, in some environments, the best do it really well, but a lot at the junior level, even at the collegiate level, they've got pretty soft in how they train. They don't train enough volume for many of these athletes that want to compete at the highest level. I'm not sure if you see that in golf as much, but in tennis, you have these two groups of people. You have the ones that do what's needed, understand the demands of the sport, and train appropriately. And then you have a lot of people that are in cotton wool a little bit. They never push their boundaries. They never push their limits. Tennis is physically really demanding. You have to be able to do it every day for many hours every day at tournaments and compete when you're sore, when you're tired, when you're physically maybe a little nicked up, banged up. And if you don't train for that, it's really impossible to do it in a max situation. So the best in the world still do it the right way, but it's pretty interesting in the tennis world, on the men's side especially. The top guys obviously have been at the top for nearly 2 decades. And it's amazing when you think about it. You got a guy who was now over 40, Roger Federer, was still one of the top 3 players in the world at 40, which had never happened before in tennis. And part of the reason was he was willing and able to put his body through things that a lot of people aren't willing to do anymore. So there's that little bit of balance there. I'm not sure if you see components of that. Because you hear about the stories of the golfers, hitting 8 hours, at the range until all their hands are blistered through. How many guys actually do that?
I don't think as many as that. They don't do it like that. They don't practice like that. They practice more. They train their bodies more to be able to function efficiently, to be able to create it. And then, but the biggest part, and you said this with tennis and golf too, is it's a lot of recovery. I mean, if you think about in golf, there's 46 weeks a year they play. So there's only 6 weeks that they don't play a tournament. Now, not every guy plays that many tournaments. I get that. But
the year you played the most, do you remember how many?
Yeah, I played 34 events in the year that maybe only had 44 at that time. But so I played a lot, and I did kind of play more. I always kind of considered myself like. I don't know. You don't ever say I was kind of a middle of the pack kind of PGA Tour guy. I won a couple times, but I made a lot of cuts. I kind of finished in that. So I was looking at it as, all right, I'm trying to provide for my family. I'm just going to go out there and, if I'm going to play a lot, if I make a lot of cuts and, finish 30th or 40th, I'm putting a little cash in the bank every week. And so I didn't, I guess my goals or my structure wasn't the same as some of the other guys. The other guys looked straight at majors. I'm going to win these 4 tournaments. I'm only going to play 16 times a year. These are my tournaments I'm going to play in. And I didn't have that kind of access. I kind of had the access of, hey, if I got in the majors, that's awesome. If not, I'm playing every event I can possibly get in and play.
Yeah, which is really relevant for people that don't work in sports, that have other jobs. You had to show up. Your schedule was dictated by what you could get into many times. It wasn't like you said, the luxury of picking your schedule at the beginning of the year. I'm going to play these majors and then I'm going to sprinkle it with these other events. You probably most of the time were waiting to figure out, did you make certain events? You had to jump on a plane the next day you'd be playing. That must have happened a lot where you were last minute.
Yeah, you never knew. You kind of had an idea, but you just didn't really always know. And you qualified for some tournaments, and other tournaments you didn't qualify for. And so those are kind of built-in weeks off was when you weren't able to play. So, but in any event, you just kind of happened to qualify. Man, you just went and you just kept playing. So
was there ever like a push-up competition or a bench press competition or a squat competition ever where guys were trying to see who could lift the most weight?
We had like cookie eating competitions. We got remember this PGA Tour. This isn't like the NFL. No, but I never saw any of that. But later in my career, I saw a lot of guys just really working out, and I do think there is that bubble that some really understood what they needed to do, and others were just doing it because they felt like they had pressure to do it, and they didn't really understand how to do it or how to make their bodies any more efficient. And and I think some of the times they got hurt by doing that and not knowing, And
You bring up a huge point. I mean, you have to be careful about doing anything that you're not used to doing, let alone heavyweight, lightweight. It's just putting your bodies in positions, especially the older you get. If you haven't done something, your body's adapted to who you are. And if you start loading them real heavy in certain movements, usually bad stuff happens if you're not doing it the right way. And I've seen that all too often where players that had never really trained a certain way started to do it because someone else did it, and they didn't do it with the right coach or with the right way, and they ended up hurting themselves. And I think it's a really important message for folks out there that are trying to implement a new program of some sort. Just make sure you work with someone who's got the skill set, who can guide you, and who can progress appropriately.
100%. That's exactly right. If you don't know what you're doing, stick to what you know what you're doing, right? Like, don't do anything you don't know how to do, because you will get hurt.
Yeah. And it's, especially like you hear about the various workouts out there, the Orange Theories, the boot camps, the CrossFits, the things that pop up every 2 or 3 years. They're on a regular cycle of the new hot workout activity, and there's nothing wrong with any of them. There's never really a bad exercise. It's just a bad exercise for the wrong person at the wrong time who hasn't trained appropriately to perform that activity. So you just got to be careful about jumping on the bandwagon of all these different things that are out there, because there's always a new activity or a new workout program, or now with all the home fitness equipment that's coming out. I don't know if anyone's seen things like Tonal or the Mirror or some of these activities that are coming out. They're putting a lot of emphasis on you, the person, to know what you're doing, because they're making it easier for you, because they're giving you all this weight that you've got sort of someone not personally watching you but telling you what to do, and then you got to figure out, are you doing it right? Do you have good technique? Are you loading with the right amount of weight? So it's just a cautionary tale to be careful as things are getting more easily accessible in your home. You also may run into problems with overdoing it because you're trying to teach yourself.
That's it. I'm done doing anything at home. Done. Not doing it. Yep.
It's like me trying to put up different things in the house. I can never do it as well as a professional contractor, because they're skilled at it. They know what they're doing. They know where the nails go. They know where the studs are. I try to, hit a nail into the wall and something falls on the other side of the wall and I don't realize. Yeah, so it's that's
a great relationship. Yeah, you would know. That's right. You wouldn't just start ripping out the plumbing in your house, would you? Like, if you had no idea what you were doing.
I definitely wouldn't. I don't have that skill set. That's for sure.
Me neither.
So now it's time for the two hot things, and we've got a couple actually. If you want to start, I know you've got your iWatch.
So, my iPhone my Apple Watch is something that I absolutely love to use in exercise and in golf and everything. I mean, like it has all these functions for anything you do. You walk, you do Pilates, you do. It pretty much has any of the exercise, but you click on it and it tells you kind of set your goals for the day. Like, hey, I want to exercise so many minutes. I want to burn so many calories. I want to do this. And then like it has this awesome feature. It's called the stand-up goal. And like if you stand up 12 times a day, it dings and gives you this award. I mean, I'm telling you, this thing's always buzzing saying like how great you are. And I don't know. I use it a lot. Just because of that. Like, it's like my little personal trainer over there.
Exactly.
Just
you enjoy the positive reinforcement.
100%. And I mean, like, if all I got to do is stand up 12 times a day, I'm going to be pretty damn good at it. So I promise you. But yeah, I think it's great for use in all of that. Like, it's fun. I will walk. I walk with my wife every morning, the dog or whatever, and you just kind of set the timer. It tells you kind of how far you walk. And you just kind of, like, all the little mini goals. Like, I always call them they were little W's. And all the little W's eventually came together to get you the big W, which is where you hoisted the hardware and cashed the big check.
Yeah, and we call it the 1%ers. If you can do a lot of the 1%ers right, you get to 100% pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's all those little details. My hot thing is actually called an Aura Ring. So I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with this, but it's similar concept of what it's trying to do as the watch, but it's actually a ring, so you can put it on and you can wear it all day. A lot of what we utilize it for with our athletes and is to monitor sleep. Really, really easy. You just put it on before you go to bed. Gives you your heart rate variability, which is how much variability you have per heartbeat. So it's not actually your heart rate, but it's the variability between beats. And everyone's on a different schedule. And the more stressed you are, it creates a different environment, and you can tell sort of how stressed you are. So that's the concept behind it. It also measures your skin temperature, which gives you a little bit more accurate reading on how your body's functioning. So it gives you a sense of when you're feeling good, when you're not. People are utilizing it to help make decisions about how hard should I train today, based on a little bit more physiological information. So this is one of those products that actually has some good data behind it. It's one of the better wearables out there right now, and it's something, if you're interested in understanding how you're sleeping, how you're feeling, how you're recovering from your daily workouts and just daily life stress, this is a really interesting product. So something to take a look at.
That's awesome. I gotta check that out. I've never put one on.
Yeah, and it's real easy because it's a ring. Most people are used to wearing a ring at some point, and some people just use it at night and then take it off in the morning, and some people wear it all day, every day to monitor everything. So you really have some flexibility there. So again, this whole show was about a little bit about health and how fitness and how that's changed in sports over the last couple decades. Keep following us. Send us your questions. Our shows are going to continue to evolve, talk about different topics in the sports world. Tennis and golf are two of the sports we're most familiar with, but also human performance. And we'll see you next time.